Hey and welcome back to another episode of Across the Ocean. Welcome everyone back here to Across the Ocean. James, it's great to see you again, buddy. It's been too long. How has 2025 started for you?
Great to see you too, buddy. Yeah, so far so good, man. It's been a lot of travel. Not a great deal of diving or filming so far this year. A little bit, but not an excessive amount. But just just a lot of travel and trips and enjoying some cooler weather here in Miami, which is always something we look forward to. How about yourself?
Nice. Yeah, been busy. I don't even know where this first month has gone in 2025. It just seems like we've just started this year, and it's in full speed already for me. I've been working on quite a few projects, a few interesting things that will come up on the channel here in a little moment. And yeah, I mean, I'm very motivated and really thrilled to go into 2025 and make it even better than 2024 was. So all good over here in Switzerland. Yeah.
Excellent.
So we've come together to talk about something that is quite important to me and that has taken a lot of my time over the last couple of weeks and even month, I would say. And I know that it is a topic that has been on your mind quite a lot as well. We are talking about upgrading underwater camera systems. Once again, we've talked about that a little earlier in a previous episode already to a certain degree, but now it seems like our kind of endeavors have gotten parallel, because I know that you're looking to upgrade your camera system, your underwater camera system, and I have just started the process of upgrading my underwater camera system. So it seems like a good time to talk a little bit about what kind of thoughts go into that process from our side when we look at something like this. And what we want to do is try to sort of give you the 3 top things that each of us individually thinks about when we start looking at upgrading underwater camera systems and why we might want to do this. So this is what's going to be the topic of today's video, and then in next episode we'll be talking a little bit more about how to get rid of your older underwater camera system once you've upgraded, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So let me just pass the word right on to you, because I've been talking for way too long, James. What is one of the points that is most important to you in a new underwater camera system? What are you looking out for when you start making that decision of upgrading?
Yeah, so I think, as you said, an upgrade for me is about obviously getting something better. You want to improve what you've already got. So the first thing I like to do is look at what am I shooting now, and what are the limitations of that? Or what's on my wish list that I wish the camera I currently had would have in the future, and what sort of do I want to hone in on and make better. Everything we talk about on the show comes down to one word: technology. And technology, when it comes to cameras, only moves in one direction. It always gets better. You're always going to buy a better camera than the one you've got now. Not a different one at the same level, but if you go and buy a new camera, it's going to have more improved features that you'll be looking for. For example, to be specific, I've got the GH5, as you know. I'm shooting on it right now. It's my main underwater camera rig, which I have the housing for over my shoulder there. One of the things that irks me about this camera, it's a well-noted thing, I didn't invent this, the autofocus is pretty terrible. We like autofocus when we're tracking animals underwater or doing motion shots and that kind of thing, and the GH5 just does not have good autofocus. So in my specific example, now we have AI technology coming in where they're able to, in real time, analyze what you're shooting at and be like, that is a shark, that is a human face, and lock the autofocus onto a person, an object, or an animal with a lot more precision using AI technology. And that's just something that didn't exist, wasn't available when I bought the GH5. So it's going to move me forwards and help me make better videos. So you always got to look at the technological features that weren't a thing. Yes, there's going to be frame rates and autofocus and all the things that every camera has, shutter, exposure buttons and all this kind of stuff. But really, like when new tech comes out, that always gets me pretty excited. You know, without going down the Terminator rabbit hole, but AI is going to be a part of our lives. It's inevitable. So it's going to be super interesting to see how the big camera companies integrate AI to help us make better videos. So that's definitely my first thought. Your thoughts on AI, Matthias?
Yeah, very, very valid point you're making there. I think that's absolutely right. Cameras nowadays do include a lot more of those AI features, and it's gonna, it's only gonna go, as you said, one direction from now on. It's just gonna get better and better and better. Now, what AI does in cameras nowadays is the worst it will ever be. It's only gonna get better from here. So yes, I think we would be fools not to embrace the possibilities that those technological advances offer to us, whichever way they're gonna take the camera world. And I'm excited to see where they're gonna take us and how it's gonna help us to create better visuals when capturing our underwater adventures. So absolutely valid point. I can definitely see this. Yeah. My first point, if I may just transition into that right away.
Absolutely.
Is very different to what you were saying with your technological advances, because it's something that doesn't really have much to do with technology. And it's written down here, travel friendliness. And I know that what you're gonna say now, well, your Komodo is not very travel friendly, because that's what you said before we started rolling for today's episode. And I completely agree. It is not travel friendly per se, if you just look at that term standalone. But if you compare it to other cinema cameras, cinema systems underwater, then it is probably the most travel-friendly system that you can get, because it still fits into a regular-sized suitcase, or even in a backpack. If you get a large backpack, you can take it as a carry-on. So it is still, I would still see it as a travel-friendly system, but definitely, of course, not as travel-friendly as if you take a Olympus TG7 with you on your dive trip. But then again, it is kind of a compromise between other things that we'll come to a little later and the travel friendliness. And for me, because I'm not as fortunate as you are, James, that I have a tropical piece of water right next to where I live, traveling is a crucial part for my work. And I always have to put my camera gear onto an airplane to go to some nice places. And that's why travel friendliness is a really, really big criteria for me when I pick out a new underwater camera system.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome, man. I think also, you know, on the subject of technology and so on and travel friendliness, I know that you want to talk about how resolution or image quality specs evolve. What's the next step? Yeah. What are we going to see next? What's the next step? I mean, we've been from, you know, 260 or 360 to 480 to and so on, and now we're at sort of I'm shooting at 4K right now. Where's that going on? What are we going to do, and how do you sort of manage that when it comes to upgrading your gear?
Good question. I don't know where it's going to go. I think it's just going to go again in one direction. It's just going to get more and more until maybe we reach a point where the human eye would just simply not be able to detect the difference anymore. Is that already happening with 8K? Maybe, arguably. Some people say that you can't really say or see a difference between like 6K and 8K. I'm not too sure. It really depends. But I think that as long as people are willing to embrace like new technology and high resolution and play with it, the industry will provide it. You know, they will find ways to make it happen and to provide it. And there's always use cases where you're happy and you're very grateful that you have higher resolution, higher frame rates, all that sort of stuff, where you can actually zoom into like closer into the image, and you can crop it and you can reframe it. You can use that extra room to stabilize your footage. All that sort of stuff is quite important, I think. And I know that you've also got a very interesting sort of view on this when it comes to how much resolution should you have and what are the frame rates that you should have in your underwater camera system. maybe you wanna quickly talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the point that, you know, the higher the resolution, the more you can punch in and crop in editing, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you take the perfect shot in 8K, right? You've got an 8K, you upgrade to an 8K camera, and you take the perfect shot that needs no cropping at all. You do your color balance on it, and that's ready for viewing. What are you going to view that footage on? Like, what are you using that footage for? So if I'm a commercial videographer who's looking to, you know, sell a library of stock images, obviously I want the best that's on the market right now, because that's what people are going to pay for. And if you go to stock market sites right now to look for a clip of footage, you'll see that the 4K ones cost more than the 1080p ones, the HD ones. So obviously I'm going to want to, you know, if I'm there and I'm shooting, why wouldn't I want to shoot in the highest resolution to, you know, supply that market and hopefully make the most money? But if I'm just shooting for me and my family and they're going to watch it on their iPhones, I don't know if you need 8K yet. It's not going to make a difference, you know. If you're watching at home on your TV, well, what's your TV capable of doing? We actually realized that we were running a 1080 HD Apple TV on our 4K television. So it's the devices and then the screen that you're actually going to show it on have to be compatible as well. So think about, you know, what do you shoot or what do you shoot for? What are you doing with your footage? Same thing with YouTube, right? I remember when YouTube just upgraded to allow 4K videos. But if you're shooting in 8K right now, if you invest in an 8K camera, you can't upload that to YouTube at 8K. They're going to down-res it for you and compress it, and what's the point for that, you know? So maybe now's not the time. Maybe we wait. So just think about when you're going to do, or what you're going to do with your footage, and what devices is that footage going to be viewed on. I think that's pretty important.
That is pretty important. And if I may just add something to this thought, I think that it's also important to think about future-proofing your gear. And this all goes down the line where how often are you thinking of upgrading your gear, right? If you do this like with action cams, with GoPros, and you just get the new GoPro every single year, well then it doesn't really matter because you're going to get a new one next year anyways. But if it's a big investment that you make once and then you're planning on staying with that system for the next 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 years, then it might make sense to go for that extra resolution now, because it's going to keep your footage a little more future-proof even in the coming couple of years. So even when everyone else has already upgraded to 12K, you're still shooting with 8K. It's still somehow you know, acceptable. But if you're on 4K still, your footage is probably not going to be as sought after anymore.
Yeah. So
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I still have trouble with that term, future-proof. So you know how something can be, let's say you have a watch and the watch is water resistant, or it's waterproof.
Yeah. Oh, all right. I see. Yeah.
I think all camera gear is future resistant. I don't think anything is future proof.
It's a good point, and I have to agree on that one. Yeah, it's maybe a term that has been just used slightly in a wrong way. So maybe we should initiate the term future resistant.
That's us. We're coining it. Coined here across the ocean. You heard it here first. James and Matthias are coining future resistant, like water resistant. Can you say, excellent, Matthias, hand on your heart, that the next camera you buy is going to be the last camera you ever buy?
No.
No, exactly.
Of course
so there's
not.
no future proof.
No.
There's no future proof.
Why would I say that?
Because there's no future proof.
No.
There's no future proof.
That's right. That's right.
Does not exist.
Future,
it's not
future
a thing.
resistant. Hashtag future resistant. Let's make this a thing on social media.
Future resistant. I like it.
I love it.
I like it.
Okay. I've got one more add-on to image quality. When you were saying about resolution, frame rate, what is also important to me when I look at new cameras is not just the frame rate and the resolution. This is obviously important, but I also look at what kind of codec is the camera capable of recording. And basically a codec is the container in which the files are saved, and different codecs save your files in a different way. Now, a GoPro saves your files very differently and compresses them a lot more than what cinema cameras would typically do. They don't really compress your files as much or not at all, and then you end up with what we call raw files. And the raw file is basically something that you can manipulate in any possible way. So your white balance, your ISO, all these things can be adjusted in post-production, which just gives you a lot more leeway for your corrections and for adjusting the look of your image. And that's one of the beauties of shooting with cinema or higher end cameras, because they have that raw capability in them. So for me, at this point of my career, I would not buy a camera, no matter how high the resolution is and how high the frame rates are, if it's not capable of recording raw footage, raw video footage. And especially the Red RAW, which is in my opinion really the best codec out there when it comes to color science, to being able to manipulate the codec or the image and get really the image out of it that you want. Well, it kind of dials down my options for cameras really for the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. Right, but before we go into the last point, because we haven't really talked about this yet, which is surprising, we haven't really said what kind of cameras we're looking at upgrading.
You mean like
do you want to share that? Are you ready to share that? Yeah, are you ready to share that? Or?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, everyone knows, like I said, I shoot on the GH5 right now. I have the Nordic housing for it, as do you. I know that, you know, in the next episode we're going to talk about tips for selling gear, because we're both going through that right now as a process. So yes, I'm looking to do to get rid of the Panasonic GH5. I've got a collection of glass and so on, and switch systems altogether to Sony. Because, like I said, the main, and in my first point, the main rub spot for me is on the GH5 is the autofocus, and I've had a couple of shots that would have been absolutely clutch, except for some reason the camera decided to shift focus to a leaf in the corner of the frame instead of the main object that I had it tracking, for no apparent reason. Thanks a lot, Panasonic, appreciate that. So for me, yeah, it's going to be a complete system switch, which means not just new camera, new housing, but also all new glass, because it will be a completely different mount. So all lenses will go, and I'll make the switch to Sony. Nice. For you, you've already kind of done your upgrade, but you're still trying to move your GH5, right?
I'm still trying to move my GH5, and I have made my upgrade. Well, I'm just sending in the housing to be upgraded now, so I'm changing from the Red Komodo, which I've been using for the past 2 years, now to like the Red Komodo X, which is sort of a improved Red Komodo, if you want, with better codecs, not better codecs, but better frame rates, and a slightly better low light performance, which is also quite important underwater. And they have actually made it a little cheaper now. They've come down with the prices, the Red cameras, which makes it financially feasible for me to actually make that upgrade. Plus I can use the same housing that I already have. It can be upgraded for not too much money, and that was what got me into actually going for that upgrade. And I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to receive it and get it wet at the next possible occasion. Right. So yeah, but for me the glass stays the same, the system stays the same, but it's just a slight upgrade really. It's not a major upgrade as what is ahead of you really.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a key thing to think about, right? When you think about the upgrade, everything we've talked about so far has been, what do I want? What's the next thing? What's the next camera? But half of an upgrade is getting rid of your old stuff as well. You know, it's okay, when is the right time to sell your existing system? Because you don't want to leave it on the shelf collecting dust and then try and sell it and it's not worth anything because nobody wants it anymore because it's so old and the technology's so old. So you've also got to consider, okay, does the GH5, which shoots 4K 60, which is still amazing and relevant, you know, does it still have value for people out there in the market? And I think the answer is, if you were coming from a GoPro or from a TG6 and you wanted to buy Matthias's GH5 package with the Nordcam, you are getting an upgrade yourself, even though it's to gently used and well loved gear.
That's very true. Yep, absolutely. Gently used, I like that term. Yeah.
Gently used and well loved, you know. So it's still an upgrade, but then at what point do you get rid of your camera and move on to the next one? as well. You know, you want to look at the. It's like cars. It's like when you go to sell your car, you don't want to sell it at 300,000 miles because it's not going to be worth, you know, 20 euros. You've got to be considerate of that.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And another thing that I'd like to say here is sort of a thought towards compatibility. I was saying just before that, for me, it's not going to be a major upgrade because the system's going to stay the same, the glass is going to stay the same. But one thing that when I did my major upgrade from the GH5 that I used previously to the Red Komodo, one of the sort of important things for me back then was to see what kind of glass do I already have, because I was using already back then mostly Canon cameras to do all my above water filming. So I had quite a bit of Canon glass, high quality, expensive glass. And luckily, the Red Komodo, the Komodo system, they come with RF mounts standard on their camera. So I was able to reuse and keep using the high quality Canon glass that I already had. And that made a big difference to me because it meant back then that I didn't have to invest in all new glass. And that was also one of the reasons that pushed me towards making that change in the first place. And I think that's something that is also something that should be kept in mind, really, when you make such a major shift. Yeah, but it can also be a good thing to change everything like you're doing, because then it just gives you a fresh start, and you can really just pick up what is, you know, top of the line if you want that at the moment of purchase, and you can get the best fitting components that work best together. Right. So, when are you getting yours?
Well, I need to sell this one first. I need some capital. So I'm going to sell first and buy second. You know, like I said, it's not as big a part of my business as it is for you as a professional underwater cinematographer. And I don't want to have two housings and camera systems, or I don't have the space for it. To be honest, I just don't have the space for it. If I had one here now, I wouldn't know where to put it. So I need to sell everything that's over there on that bench, get rid of all that stuff, and then I'll have both the money to buy and the room. Not that it's going to be a straight swap, obviously, but it'll definitely go towards it.
Yeah, exactly.
I know I said I was going to do it last year, and that just came down to me being busy and lazy and not getting the ad together and so on. But it is definitely my goal for this month to get what am I selling together, getting the package together, and then sort of, you know, getting out there, because I haven't even advertised it really. I've spoke to a couple of people that I might be selling my system, but they haven't really done anything about it. But we are going to talk about that on the next episode of Across the Ocean, where we'll talk about how to sell your gear if you are going to upgrade to new gear.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. So thank you very much, guys, for being with us on this episode of Across the Ocean. If you're interested in James's gear, how do you say? Well used and loved.
Gently used and well loved.
Gently used and loved. Well, let him know, either in the comments or send him a direct message. I'm sure James is going to be happy if he doesn't have to put everything together and do all the advertising. If someone comes up and says, yep, I want to have your gear, then please do get in touch with James. Other than that, have an awesome time. Great to have had you here on the show with us, and we will see you next month. James, any additions you want to make? No,
that's all. Thanks so much for watching,
guys.
Take care.
Okay, take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.